Alright, so tonight we're going to be talking about customizing your office's template. So whether it's for your own practice or you work in an office environment, being part of the process of keeping your office organized starts with the template that your office uses. Now, the process of setting up your own template is shown on the Options tab. So if you go to the File tab on the ribbon and go to the Options dialog box, setting up your office's template happens on the File Locations tab. So I've got my own template when I'm doing work for folks, doing buildings for them. So I've got my own template there, and it's at the top of the list. Now, on the File Locations tab in Options, if you add a new template and then use the up button to move it to the top of the list, what happens is that when you go to the new dialog box to create a new project in Revit, it shows your template first. So then you can, in order, show what templates are displayed in the new dialog box. So again, if I type in Control-N, the Windows keyboard shortcut to start a new file in the program that you're using, Control-N will start a new project using the template that you've set up. So if you are going to be creating your own template, then the first thing you need to do is take your project and save it as a template. So what you can do is you can either use start off with the out of the box Revit template, just save it as under a new name, put it someplace where you can easily get access to it, and go from there. Now, a little later I'll talk about the organization of families within your practice, and having your office template in a location that you can quickly find is obviously good practice. Now, one of the things that I like to tell people about, because it makes you so much more productive, is the use of keyboard shortcuts. So if you folks type in KS on your keyboard, it will bring up the keyboard shortcuts dialog box. So over the years, I've made up a series of shortcuts for a lot of different things here. So as you can see, as I scroll through my command list, I've made keyboard shortcuts for a lot of things. So for instance, if I want to draw a wall, there's already a keyboard shortcut for that. That's WA in the Revit keyboard shortcut list. But now if I want to draw like a series of rectangles of walls, I can type in Q4 on my keyboard and it'll fire up the rectangle option. So when we look in the keyboard shortcuts, and I just type in rectangle here, so here there's commands for doing a rectangle. So instead of me, say, starting to draw some detail lines, DL, or DD rather, and then going up and finding the rectangle dialog box, I can just type in Q4 and get the rectangle tool straight away. Or if I want to draw a circle, I can type in Q2, and for me that's just my keyboard shortcut for switching between, and watch this space up here, switching between commonly used geometric tools that are used in the process of creating geometry in Revit. So the process, of course, is going into keyboard shortcuts, finding a particular command, clicking on it, and then down here adding a new, keyboard shortcut for, there's underlay elements, and I can assign that. And if there's no conflict, Revit just adds that command straight away, and you can go to town and start using it. However, now you can see here, if I want to get rid of a command shortcut, click on it and hit remove. Now you can see down here I already have a command EF for a command in Revit. So now if I try and put that in here, Revit will let you know that there's a conflict. Now this is very much like the alias editor in AutoCAD. I highly recommend the use of keyboard shortcuts. It makes a great big difference to your productivity. In the Session 7 folder for tonight, you will find a keyboard shortcuts file which you can import. So once you've got some keyboard shortcuts set up, you can export the shortcuts to an XML file that you can give to somebody else. So I've got a keyboard shortcuts file in our Session 7 folder that's I've developed over the years. Just it's intuitive and got a lot of the most commonly used commands that are in there, and you can grab it if you wish. Now, in the process of creating your Office template, there's a few tasks that you have to go through. So under creating the Office template, most common, of course, is your dimension and text styles. So if we look at some dimension styles that are provided out of the box in Revit, there's a whole bunch of them here. So this is just using the dimension command and then looking in the properties palette to see all of the different dimension styles that are provided in the out of the box template. Now with dimensions, you don't need this many different kinds of dimension styles. I would suggest that you only need one for your linear dimensions, arc length dimensions, and your linear with the center line. So in many offices, architectural firms, they use the heavy tick for a dimension length. But if they're doing something like the length of an arc, they may opt to use an arrow instead of the tick for dimension the length of that arc. And that's up to you. Revit specifically has a dimension style laid aside for arc length dimensions, so if you want to change the graphic between those two use cases, you've got an opportunity to do so. Additionally, when we have a door or a window or some other object that we have in our project that has a center line, like a window, we can ask that the dimension style, if you dimension to an object that has a centerline reference plane within it. So doors and windows, as we've seen, there's that reference plane that's provided in the center of the door and window template, and a lot of other family templates as well. Those templates typically define, sorry, I don't have a green pen here, wait a minute. So if within the family template, the reference plane in the middle of that family is set to be centerline, then what will happen if your dimension style asks for a centerline symbol to be placed, whenever you snap to the centerline of something, Revit will put a nice little CL above the dimension. So when we look at our linear styles, you might want to just have a regular dimension style, and that'll have a tick. Maybe an arc length style with an arrow. Again, that's up to you, your office's styles. I certainly prefer an arrow when I'm looking at an arc length because it's kind of like an angular dimension, which isn't done with generally speaking. So an arc length dimension for me is very similar to measuring something's angle in terms of, you know, how the dimensions should appear. And then finally we have a centerline dimension style where your dimensions can indicate when you snap to the center line of something. So those are basically the only three different dimension styles you might need. Now, you might need ones with high or low precision. So sometimes, and we should talk about your project setup, and this goes to the concept of CAD too. It's a situation that you would encounter in AutoCAD as well. If your project units are set to be quite coarse, let's say you set your project units to be like 1/2 inch accuracy. Even if something is a few 64ths of an inch like off, you know guys are talking about you dimension something and it ends up being, you know, 12/5 and 11/64, because that's exactly what it is. You can, in Revit's units, so inside in Revit's units, when we go to the Manage tab and we go over to Project Units, you can, of course, degrade how accurate everything is shown inside your dialog boxes. So if I set my precision inside my project units to be 1/2 inch, your dialog boxes cannot show anything more precise than that value. This is not generally considered good practice in AutoCAD or in Revit. So what's preferred is that you take your accuracy and you crank it off the charts. So this will give you the opportunity to see if there's some sort of accuracy problem with what you've drawn so far, particularly with the distance between your grid lines. So with very high precision set for the overall units of the project, we might say to ourselves, well, the contractor absolutely does not want to see dimensions rounded to the nearest 2/56 of an inch. They'll have a red dot following you around on site, right? Somebody's going to try and knock you out of the gene pool. So what we might do then is we might then degrade the accuracy of our dimensions. So what we might do is we might have, for our regular dimension style, some sort of useful amount of precision. So out of the box, when we go and look at the units for our dimension style, it's going to just reflect the settings that you folks chose on the Manage tab for project units. But we can decide to choose our own precision. So typically, in architectural drawings that employ imperial units, we will set our accuracy to the nearest 1/8 of an inch. Another thing that we'll do is suppress 0 feet and suppress spaces so that our dimensions are as tightly packed together as possible, and so that our dimensions don't show 0 feet 6 inches. So this would be good for an overall useful everyday dimension setting. Now, because there might be times where we want to check the accuracy of something on our screen by putting a dimension between them, we might decide to take one of these dimension styles here and make it precise. So here I'm just grabbing one of the out-of-the-box dimension styles, and I'm calling it precise. I'm just putting that little suffix on the end. And then I'm going down to my project units here, and I'm going to override them again just so I can have 0 feet and suppress spaces turned on. I should probably do that in my project units as well, actually. But now what this does is it allows this dimension style to show things with high precision. Now, this probably isn't a dimension style that you want to use as a general rule. So what we'll do is we'll change the color of it so that it's going to stand out on our screens, making it red, so that we will know if one of these dimensions is sitting out on the screen at some point, it could show a 2/56 of an inch on it, and that would be bad. So let's make it red. So what this will allow us to do is to look at the dimension between things and just confirm that it's a nice, tidy dimension. So if we happen to have done something so that the dimension is a bit of a mess, especially between our grid lines, we can go back, pick the object that needs to be moved and turn it back into a tidy number. Once that's done, we can change that dimension back to our regular dimension style that only shows things at maximum 1/8 inch accuracy. You might have some situations where you've got a project and it's going to be a bit of a mess initially. Maybe the people who drew the project initially, they weren't being very disciplined. And for right now, you need to show a dimensioned plan, but you don't even want to show to the nearest 1/8 of an inch. So what you actually want to do is degrade the accuracy of your dimension style further. So here what we might do is just indicate in the dimension style name what kind of accuracy we are going to employ. And now in the units dialog box, I am rounding now to the nearest inch. And I might just make this a subtly different color so that I know something. It won't, you might not notice it when it prints. So here just kind of a dark blue. So now if I'm looking at this thing, maybe that's not obvious enough, but I can see that that's a dark blue on my screen, and I know, when I go to click on it, it's 1 inch accuracy. Might not be good enough for a set of working drawings, but if you're just in a design stage and you want to show nice clean dimensions to your client, forget the fractions, that could be your answer. So this is all part of the process of setting up your dimension styles and choosing your fonts. So by using the dimension command and then choosing between the different dimension styles that are here, you can create ones for your linear, for your arc length, for your low precision, for your high precision. Set up those dimension styles and then purge the rest in your template. So the purge process is on the Manage tab, and it's here, Purge Unused. So when you're setting up your template, you'll go to Purge Unused, and now you're going to start culling out the dimension styles and other stuff that you don't need in your template. Now I should point out that when the Purge command fires up, it purges everything to begin with. That's dangerous. It's probably going to purge out things that you need, like corner mullions used in curtain walls. Revit's saying like, hey, you're not using them. Well, your file's blank. Of course I'm not using them yet. So you don't, when you're making your template, want to purge everything. You want to be judicious with the items that you do purge. So here I can go down to my linear dimension styles, and there's a whole bunch of dimension styles in here that I'm not even going to need as I'm creating my template. So I'll start nuking some of these dimension styles here that I don't want. So now when I go and look in my dimension style dialog box, I've gotten rid of a whole bunch of them. So there's fewer for me to set up as I'm creating my office's template. So with the text styles, you can just start the text command and need another set, Henry? Okay. Just a moment here, folks. I'm going to print off one more set of notes. Oh no, it's okay, I'll print it off. Okay, now I got to remember my notes. That's right. So text styles. So when you're setting up your text styles, that's even easier. annotate text. There we go. So before you start, right, I can start going through and looking at these two text styles and changing their name. Now, for doing things like looking at the dimension styles that you've got and seeing if you're happy with the way they look, what I'm doing here is I'm creating just a few geometries on my screen so that I can start configuring my dimension styles and deciding if I'm happy with their appearance. So I've got a couple of lines that are at different angles. I've just got another just short piece of detail line here that will allow me, when I'm using the dimension command, to put some dimensions in place of different kinds, angular dimensions, radial dimensions, and diameter dimensions. Thank you, sir. So with all these different dimension styles in place, I can start deciding on, well, how many diameter dimension styles do I need? There's only one out of the box that's provided. How many radial dimension styles do I need? There's 3 that are provided here. So things like the arc length dimension, you know, if I have an arc length dimension, which I guess I purged, I can create an arc length dimension style, and I can decide, do I want one of these ticks at the end, or do I want an arrow? So in your dimension styles, along with the text definitions at the bottom and the size of the text, you also invoke a tick mark. So these tick marks are defined on the Manage tab under Additional Settings. Right there, arrowheads. So this is in the Additional Settings menu on the Manage tab. So in here, we've got all the different arrows that are provided. You folks won't need too many of these. I think most folks can get away with 3 or 4 different arrow styles in their project, and the rest you can just purge out. So once you set up all your dimension styles and pointed them to use the different arrows that you want, you can go back into the Purge Unused dialog box. Again, always hit check none when you go in here. And then down at the bottom of the list, there's an arrowhead section here. So any arrowheads that aren't being used by anything, you can go through, pick the first one, shift click the last one, hit the check box, and that'll allow you to purge all of those things in between. So that's kind of the process there. So dimension and text styles, standard title blocks. So of course when you add a new sheet, right now of course it's only got the Autodesk title blocks in it. We'll look at creating those title blocks later. What I'd recommend for your Office's template is to have all the different common page sizes that you folks would use. So a letter size template, 11 by 17 size template, and then your common full-size title block. So those 3 different title blocks ready to go. Now let's talk about print settings. Another great thing to have in your Office's template is a number of different print settings that you folks are likely to use. Now, unlike AutoCAD, where the print setup includes the device that you're printing to, Revit does not know with its print setup. It does not include the device in the print setup. So down at the bottom here, where the print setup is configured, the print device itself is not part of the equation. The best thing to do when you're setting up your plot settings is to have a PDF writer of some kind. For those of you who are looking for a good PDF writer, there's a couple that I can recommend. I'll put them up on the screen here. Qt PDF is one. This is freeware. Great little PDF writer, easy as pie, real piece of cake to use. That's one of them. A more sort of industrial strength one is one that's called PDF Creator. Both of these are freeware. So here's PDF Creator here. If you go to the download section here, they've got their different versions. The PDF free version is not, there's no ads. It's perfect. Way better. Way better. Way faster.
Which one? The
Qt PDF and PDF Creator. Now, what's the difference between the two? PDF Creator is what's called a collating PDF application. What this means is, and I'll just give you an example here, I can print from Word to PDF Creator. So now this Word document is going to PDF Creator. Now I can go to Revit and I can also print to PDF Creator at the same time. What view am I in here? Level 1. Okay. So now I've printed from Revit to PDF Creator. And PDF Creator just sits in the background here and collects all the PDFs that get sent into it. And you can decide if you want them to be separate print jobs or if you want to merge them. So this allows you to make a cover sheet for a drawing set and then print the drawing set. So if you want to have a little a transmittal at the beginning of the PDF and include that with the PDF set of full-size drawings, PDF Creator will allow you to put all of those documents together into a single PDF. So I just hit merge here, and then I would just hit continue and then save them as a single file PDF. So PDF Creator is a little fancier, it's a little more complicated, but it is nice in that it allows you to oh, that's a good question. In terms of changing the size of your outputted PDF, a lot of that depends upon, and we'll get back into the print dialog box here. If you set your print device, when you're setting up your print settings for your template, to be a PDF device, then you're going to have all the different page sizes available to you. So here I've got my PDF device set current, and now I'm going to go into my print settings. So here in this dialog box, the page sizes that it shows to me are all of the different page sizes available to a PDF printer, i.e. all of them. Now, if I choose to use the godforsaken Ricoh printer down the hall that is almost always half dead when we come in every night to print the notes for you folks. So right now one of the machines is dead and the other one's thinking about it. You put two laser printers in one room and the one's committed suicide and it gives the other one bad ideas. Right? So it's a bad scene. So with this one here, when I go and look at the paper sizes from my laser printer, I've only got the paper sizes that that printer supports. So I've got my letter, my legal, and 11 by 17. That's the biggest size. So if I'm trying to set up an Arch D or one of the A0, A1 ISO sheet sizes, I can't do it when I've got a laser printer set current. So the best thing that you can do when you're setting up your template for your office is to choose a PDF writer, so now you can go in and set up your sheet sizes. How many people here work in offices where like 36 by 24 is the most common size that you use? 36 by 24. How about ISO? Anybody? How many offices here use like A0, A1? How about the big mother, 36 by 48? For you guys on that? Yeah. So those sizes, like that's Arch E. So if I want to set up one of those paper sizes, I've got my PDF writer going here, and now I'm going to go down and find that big size, Arch E right there. No, not there. There it is, Arch E. So I set the paper size, set my zoom to 100%. I'm going to center it, so the print will be centered on the sheet. Landscape printing, hide unreferenced view tags. So if there's a section in my plans that's not yet on a sheet, so the section head is blank, why print it? So I've hidden it. Scope boxes and crop boundaries are hidden, so unless you want your crop boxes, your crop regions around the views to show, I keep them turned off. Now going back to the notion about your print size. In Revit, whenever it can, unless you've got shading turned on, vector processing will make for a very, very small print size. Raster processing, which is where it takes the view and turns it into a bunch of dots. So in terms of the print job that's going to PDF, a raster image is like a big high resolution picture of your drawings. Huge files. You do not want to do that. So that's why you want to ensure that you choose vector processing. Now with all of this set up, zoom 100%, paper size chosen, what we need to do is save this as Arch E. Paper size is ready to go. Hit OK. So now we have an Arch E. Oh, what the heck? Okay. There. So now we have the Arch E paper size ready to go. What are some other configurations? Well, often we just want to do a quick little letter sized print, right? So we go up to letter landscape at 100%. There we go. So I save it as letter landscape 100%. Forget about talking about the printer because you cannot change your printer with the print setup. The print setup only chooses the paper and the zooming. So there's your letter landscape 100%. So this will print at the scale of the view. What if you want to grab a whole bunch of the view and print that whole area? Well, then what you need to do is just set your scale to fit. And now I can save it as letter landscape to fit. So now we've got all these different paper sizes, and you can do letter portrait and all those different things. And so if you build these into the template with all your common page sizes and all of your title blocks, it's just a few less seconds that the folks in your office have to spend to set this up for themselves. And there's always a chance, of course, that they're going to do it wrong. So because you folks have come to this class, you are the smart ones. You must shepherd your users into elevated use of the software. So there's lots of crazy things that happen in offices. Henry can regale you with lots of stories of users that he has to sort of kitten herd into the realm of sanity again. But once these are all set up, it's in your template and they're ready to go. So those are a great thing to set up. Other things that are important here are your, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Cancel. Graphics for your level heads, section heads, and all of your different tags. So we'll talk about that in a bit. Line weights. If you want to adjust the line weights of how things look at your screen, I always warn people in the intro class, first night, if you guys had me as your instructor in the intro course, I told you that this line weights dialog box here, this is sacred. So there's lots of other holy books out there. You know, there's the Bible, there's the Quran. This is as holy as that. If you profane this by changing the numbers, I can't tell what could happen to you. Bad things will happen to you. You will be cursed. The real reason that this is a problem is that the industry is using this line weight table when they make you folks the different Revit families that you can get online, like on BIM Object, and they're using these line weights tables because they have no reason to change them. So if you go around mucking about these line weight tables, what line weight 5 is to you, if you change it, will be different to the folks who are making these families around the globe for your convenience. So do not adjust these numbers here if you don't like your line weights. Go to Object Styles. This is the dialog box that has been appointed unto you to change your line weight styles. So say we all. So this is where you change your line weights if you don't like them. This is where you do it here. So set up your object styles and then carry on. Now for exporting to CAD, if you export a model to CAD, so here I'm going to export CAD formats DWG, Revit uses, in this dialog box here, if you hit the little button, it's using the American Institute of Architects layer standard. So all the layer names and the layer colors comes from the AIA guidelines. If you had your own layer setup where layers are supposed to be certain colors and given certain names, you could go through this list and choose the particular layers that are of consequence to you and change their name and or their color. That's up to you. I've known lots of offices where I was doing Revit implementations where they had a very disciplined layer setup and they were very careful about it. Everything was on the right layer, and as soon as they started using Revit, their layer standard went in a dustbin and they couldn't care less about it ever again. It's the way it goes. It's like you're liberating people from the bondage of CAD. So this is all ready to go here. So other things, your common wall construction. So you can, of course, in your template, on the architecture tab here under the wall tool, you can go in and define commonly used wall assemblies. So for some of you folks, you always, in your projects, have a 6-inch steel stud with 2 layers of 5/8 type X on both sides for a fire rated wall or for an exit wall. You might have walls that you always have for party walls in between townhouses, right? So a double layer of 2x6 studs within 1-inch airspace. Put that in your template. Put all those different wall assemblies in there, floor assemblies, roof assemblies, so that when people start working on projects, they're already there ready to go. If you have doors and windows, bring those in. Another little secret here is once you folks finish a project, like a door schedule, with a finished door schedule, you can, you can see it here in the notes on page 1, door, window, and room schedules pre-formatted with all fields and organization ready to go. So as you add doors and windows to your project, they'll begin to appear, of course, in a door and window schedule that's in your template. Then you just have to drag and drop your schedules onto a sheet. Now the tip here is that from a finished project with a finished door schedule in it, you can copy the door schedule from a sheet in your project to a sheet in your template. So that means here's my sheet in the template. So if I were to go and find a finished project that I had done, so here let me so I'll just drag and drop this door schedule here. So here's one of my door schedule. Of course, there's no doors in the project yet, but that doesn't matter. If this is a finished project with a finished door schedule, all the fields, everything formatted the way I want, I can Control-C copy that finished door schedule from my project and go back to my template that I'm working on and paste that door schedule onto a sheet in my template, therefore adding that door schedule to my template. Adds all the fields. Everything's ready to go. That's a really great way to get a leg up on creating a template for your office. All right, so down at the bottom here, now along with the text and dimension styles, there are some things that you can set up that don't require any families at all. Bottom of the page 1 of the notes. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can set up, and there's no real sort of outside work that you have to do out of your template to set those up, and that's a list of them there. Now let's go over to page 2. Now, most of the graphics that you folks will use in defining the graphical appearance of your projects are based on families that are loaded in. So for instance, the elevation tags that you folks see in your plan views, in your elevation views, these symbols that you see at the end of the level lines, your grids. So the bubble that's at the end of this grid line is based on a family that's loaded into the project. So if I click on this grid line here and I go to its type properties, this thing is using a particular symbol. So this grid head circle that you see on the screen behind me, that's a family. It's been loaded into the project. In fact, I can go and find this very family in the families list under annotation symbols. There it is there, grid head circle. And we can edit it. So this opens up the grid family just like you'd open up a block in AutoCAD. So there it is. So if I change the radius of the circle, or if I change the size or the font that's being used, so if I want to go, how many people here have seen Tropic Thunder? You guys know that dumb movie? Okay, then I'm not going to refer to it there. Ben Stiller says something in that movie that's probably not appropriate to say in a classroom setting, but if you all said, oh yeah, I saw Tropic Thunder, I'd be like, okay, I'll explain to you. I'm going to go Comic Sans. So, okay. Losing my marbles here. So Comic Sans, an office environment. So if I change the font now and I load this back into the project, I'm redefining the, oh, wrong project. This should be project 1, there we go. Okay, so I'm redefining the grid here. So you can see I've changed the font to the very professional looking Comic Sans. Comic Sans, of course, is the whipping boy of the font universe. So if you look at the list of family-based graphics on the top of page 2, you can see some of them are superscripted 2, some of them are superscripted 1, and some are superscripted 3. Top of page 2. Absolutely. Don't like the circle? No problem. We can use a square. And if you want to radius the edges a little bit, I have literally seen this in an office where it was a radius square for the grids. There you go. So any shape is definitely possible for your grids. Yeah, so okay, here's the question. What if you want 2 different grid styles? Like what if you want one that's got a square on it and one that's got a bubble? Those would be 2 separate families that would load up into the project here. Let me just go through that process here. I'll save this as under a different name. Okay, so I'll load this into my project. So now, I didn't see it. You can see that the new grid head, so here's the circle one, and here's the other one that's shaped like toast. So I've got a toast grid bubble and a circular one. But for you to see this one, I have to make a grid style that uses it. So I'd have 2 different grid styles. And this one, this grid style, I would make to point to the square style. So here, if I just copy it here, I can have one grid that's using one style and one that's using another. So you can have different shaped grid bubbles if you're on your grids, if they represent different kinds of organizations in your project. So one of them could represent a column line, another one could represent, some other means of organizing your grids in your project. So in terms of level heads, so it's a very list and grid heads. You can see the first 2 bullet points on page 2. Level heads and grid heads are both style based. So with the grid heads, if we go in and go to edit type, you can see that inside the style definition for my 1/4 inch bubble, it's pointing to a particular family. which was loaded in previously. Same goes for our levels. So if we go to the type properties of our levels in the properties palette, it too is based on a family that's been loaded in prior to this step. So, looking at the other options here, there's some, like number 1 here, so in Revit these tag families are used in 3 ways, halfway down page 2. Some tags you can just load them into your project and start using them. So what do I mean? So let me put in a wall here. So I'm sure you folks have used the tag tool on a wall. So here's my wall, and I'll just change it to a W1. Okay, so there's a W1 wall. If you have a different wall tag that you're going to be using in your project, all you have to do to make use of it is to drag and drop it into Revit. And so as soon as I drag and drop that wall tag into Revit, I can just start using it. So officers have often different wall tags that they use to indicate some extra features about the wall, like whether the wall goes all the way up to the deck above, underside of deck, or whether it just goes up to the ceiling. So there's tons of different styles on this regard, but you'll see your wall tag, and then it might have a line above and a line below that kind of indicate, you know, if there's a line above, it means it goes up to the deck. If there's no line above and there's a line below, it means it goes up just above the ceiling. And then if there's no lines at all, it only goes up to the ceiling. And they'll have a, what do you call it, the thing with all the list of symbols at the side, a key, a symbol key that's put on the sheet that indicates what all of these different kinds of wall tags mean. And there's some offices that have far more complicated wall tag symbols that they use. So with these, you just load them into the project and away you go. There's no style-based anything. You just start using the tag tool and you can start making use of that different wall tag. Choosing which one is current is a simple case of going to the Annotate tab, and then under the tag pull-down menu, in Loaded Tags and Symbols, you can switch between which wall tag or door tag or whatever is being used at the moment. So here you can see there's 4 different options for my wall tag that I can use now in my project. And if I have different wall tag families, instead of saying wall tag at the front, there might be a different family name that would be listed. So here where it says wall tag, that refers to this family in the project browser, same name, wall tag, that was loaded in. So as I was saying, some people might have, 3 different families. Just a regular wall tag. They might have, the same name, to ceiling, like that would be the family name, and then another one called to deck. So they've got 3 different families with the different graphics that they want, and all of those 3 tags are in the project. And by going to this dialog box on Annotate and then the tag menu drop down, scrolling down the walls and choosing which tag they use. Is there an easier way to switch between tags? Absolutely. You just go into the directly into the, where are we at here? Directly find the wall tag and just drag that one that you want to use, drag it and drop it out in the screen. And that will be the one that's used. I don't know if you guys knew that. In fact, this goes for everything. If you want to use a particular door, just grab the size that you want to use out of the project browser, drag and drop it into the screen, and it starts that command up with the particular size of door or window that you want. And same goes with walls. Say I want a particular kind of curtain wall that I want to use. Drag and drop it out to the screen, and now you can start drawing with that particular family type. So going back to the different kinds of annotations that you might have ready to go to use in your project, just drag and drop it into the screen and you can start to use it. So those are your loadable tags. Down at the bottom of page 2 here, we'll take a break after this. If you've got different tags loaded into your project for a given category, so different wall tags, door tags, window tags, what have you, if you right click on one of them, like this W1, if I choose create similar for that tag, that particular family becomes the default every time I use the tag tool. Let me show you. So if I right click on a tag and use create similar, and I put in one of these things now, you can see, yeah, it put in a tag just like that one. But now when I go back and use the tag tool, it keeps on putting in the small wall tag. But now if I click on the larger wall tag and say make that create similar, I get the bigger wall tag, but now when I use the tag tool again, it's the bigger wall tag. So it's a way of set what's the default tag that's going to be used moving forward. Okay, 10-minute break, folks, and we shall come back and carry on.